this?
A renowned scientist made a risky decision. He stole the Guyver, an alien device that transforms into a biocomposite armor. When a human uses the armor, it enhances their natural abilities, making the wearer extremely strong. During his escape, some people spotted him from a distance on a bridge and started pointing at him, drawing attention. Realizing he had been noticed, Tetsu quickly closed the bag containing the Guyver and kept running, being pursued. However, he was soon caught. That's when Lisker stepped out of a car, holding a knife, and demanded that the scientist hand over the device. After obtaining the artifact, Lisker mockingly asked Tetsu if he was still interested in working with him. But before the scientist could respond, something surprising happened. His body began to transform, taking on the characteristics of a monstrous creature. Seeing this, Lisker transformed as well, and soon both were in powerful forms, ready to fight. The battle was brutal, but Lisker quickly overpowered Tetsu, knocking him to the ground, now covered in blood. With a smirk, Lisker picked up the device, leaving Tetsu unconscious and injured. Hours later, during a martial arts training session, Mitsuki Sagawa, Tetsu's daughter, was practicing when a man approached her. He introduced himself as Max Reed from the CIA and said he was supposed to meet Dr. Tetsu, but he arrived too late. Max explained that he had seen her father being attacked from a distance and ran to him, but it was already too late. Tetsu was dead. While Mitsuki cried, one of the trainees, Sean Baker, watched her distractedly and ended up getting hurt during training. Feeling uneasy, he decided to follow Mitsuki and Max. Meanwhile, Lisker returned to the Kronos Corporation with the stolen device. When he handed the bag to Fulton Balkus, a high-ranking executive of the company, Fulton eagerly opened it. But to his surprise, the Guyver wasn't there. Furious, Fulton used his psychic powers to force Lisker to hit himself, controlling his mind. Enraged, he threatened that this would be the end for Lisker if the device wasn't found. Sean, on the other hand, followed Max and Mitsuki to the site where her father had been attacked, observing from a distance. Max, still shaken, discussed with a colleague about the monsters he had seen at the scene. His colleague, skeptical, didn't believe him. Meanwhile, Sean heard a strange sound and saw the Guyver, the device Dr. Tetsu had hidden before being attacked. He quickly picked it up but decided to back away upon noticing Lisker nearby. Back at home, Max explained to Mitsuki that her father had stolen the Guyver from a lab and wanted to give it to Max. Tetsu's intention was to pass it on to his daughter, and Max was preparing to understand what the artifact meant. But in the middle of their conversation, there was a knock at the door. It was Sean, who, upon seeing Max, stormed off angrily without saying a word. Meanwhile, Lisker and his men were still searching the area where Dr. Tetsu had been attacked, but they couldn't find the device. Frustrated, Lisker ordered the search to continue. However, the Guyver seemed to have vanished. Sean was trying to escape the situation, but without warning, a gang appeared and surrounded him. Sean attempted to run, but he was quickly caught and immobilized. A brawl broke out, and he could barely defend himself. Amid the chaos, the device in his bag fell out. Unintentionally, he fell on top of it. Hello, my dear friends. This is the summary of the movie, The Guyver. I hope you're enjoying it. Comment, I liked it, so we know you paid attention to every detail of the video. Now let's continue. At that moment, the device fused with his body in a strange way, and he felt excruciating pain followed by an unbelievable transformation. His muscles grew, his skin became covered with metal and circuits. He was now a cyborg. Sean turned on his attackers, easily defeating them. One of the men, in desperation, pulled a gun and fired at him. But to everyone's surprise, the bullets had no effect. During the fight, Sean accidentally caught sight of his reflection in a mirror and saw his transformation. The reflection was no longer his. He was unrecognizable. Horrified, he tried in vain to rid himself of the mutation. When the gang members realized they stood no chance, they fled. Left alone, Sean continued to scream, desperately trying to remove the device from his body. But as he screamed, something strange happened. The device began to disintegrate, leaving 2 small holes on the back of his neck. He was free, but in a way he didn't understand. Meanwhile, Lisker returned to his boss, Fulton, with bad news. The device had not been found. Furious and unhinged, Fulton pressed Lisker for more information. The subordinate mentioned that Dr. Tetsu had a daughter, Mitzi, who had been at the scene of the crime. Fulton ordered Lisker to bring Mitzi to him immediately. The next day, Sean woke up, and to his surprise, his body was normal again. There were no marks from the beating he had taken the night before. Max was also having trouble. He was trying to convince the CIA that Dr. Tetsu had stolen something from Kronos, but the agency didn't believe him. Kronos claimed that the body found had been dead for weeks, making Max's theory seem increasingly absurd. Sean went to see Mitzi and learned that her father had passed away. She was sad but relieved to have someone there to support her. During their conversation, the mood turned more intimate, and the two were about to kiss when a friend of Mitzi's arrived, interrupting the moment. Sean decided to leave, promising to return later, but before leaving he noticed Lisker's men entering the house. Unsure of who they were, he stepped away, but when he returned, he found the house destroyed and Mitzi's friend lying on the floor covered in blood. Panicked, he ran, and at that moment Max showed up as well. Sean managed to take down 2 of the men, while Max, armed with a gun, rushed to the car where Mitzi was waiting. The 3 of them fled but quickly realized they were being pursued. Lisker and his men were after them. Sean, not fully understanding the situation, asked why they were being hunted. Mitzi explained that they were after the Guyver. Max tried to clarify, saying it was something like a space shield, but no one really knew what it was. Soon, Lisker and his men began to transform and intensified their search. Sean and Mitzi hid, but they could feel their pursuers getting closer. One of them found their hiding spot, and the chase escalated. Realizing he had no other choice, Max told Sean and Mitzi to run, while he stayed behind to fight. Sean and Mitzi ran but were eventually captured. They were all brought together, and Sean, in a final act of defiance, claimed that he had the Guyver. Before he could do anything, one of Lisker's men struck him, and he fell to the ground, completely vulnerable. When Sean got back up, the device emerged from the holes in his neck and reintegrated into his body. He declared, "I am the Guyver." One of Lisker's men charged at him, but Sean threw him aside effortlessly. Other enemies surrounded him, but he was far too strong to be defeated. Lisker, who had Miski under control, watched as his men fell one by one. Determined to join the fight, he handed Miski to another subordinate and faced Sean directly. Although Lisker was powerful, Sean was stronger. However, when Lisker struck him in the forehead, Sean became disoriented. Lisker realized this was his weak spot and began focusing his attacks there. Sean kept resisting, but another blow to the forehead left him even more dazed. In a moment of distraction, he accidentally struck Miski, causing her to fall, seemingly lifeless. Paralyzed by the sight, Sean hesitated. Taking advantage of this, Lisker and his men overpowered him. Lisker forcibly removed the Guyver from Sean's forehead, and Sean's body began to disintegrate. Miski woke up in a strange room under the custody of Fulton, who watched her in silence. He mentioned that he had known her father well and offered his condolences for her father's death. When she asked about Sean, Fulton dismissed him as unimportant, saying the matter was already dealt with. Instead, he showed interest in the Guyver unit and questioned her about how it had been activated. Fulton took Miski to a facility called the Growth Corridor, where he displayed genetically altered humans known as xenoids. He explained that these beings were the next stage of evolution, created by aliens who had visited Earth when it was still barren. These aliens had engineered humans as biological weapons, and the xenoids were a continuation of that creation. He believed the xenoids would infiltrate positions of power worldwide, including the White House. When Miski asked about the Guyver, Fulton explained that it was a biological armor created by the aliens, but no one yet knew how to activate it, even though a unit had already been found. Fulton grew impatient, pressuring Miski for answers. He demanded to know how she had managed to use the device, but she insisted she didn't know anything. Losing his temper, Fulton gestured toward the deformed creatures around them and suggested she might end up like one of them. "Maybe, since you're pretty, the transformation will be smoother, but no promises," he said with a menacing smile. Showing her the complex, he warned her that it could become her new home. Terrified, Miski tried to flee, but he caught her and dragged her into a laboratory. There, she was introduced to Mr. Barker and Dr. East, who commented on her father's death. East had worked with her father on the Guyver project and now oversaw the research on the control metal. Dr. East showed Miski a spherical mechanism, calling it a marvel of engineering. They proceeded to the Guyver unit, where Dr. Gordon explained that the crystalline structure of the control metal functioned like a DNA mold, suggesting that the unit was alive and growing, possibly cloning itself into a new Guyver unit. Fulton, intrigued, said Miski might no longer be needed and ordered the experiment to begin. To Miski's horror, the experiment was being conducted on Max, who was restrained with tubes connected to his head. Desperate, Miski pleaded for Max and promised to tell Fulton everything. He agreed, but as he approached, Miski struck him and ran toward the control metal, breaking the glass. She grabbed the control, but she was immediately pursued by a Xenoid who threatened to throw her into a tube. Miski tried to stall him and demanded Max's release. When another Xenoid approached, she had no choice but to throw the control. The metal stuck to her hand and wouldn't fall off until one of the Xenoids accidentally swallowed it. The creature began convulsing until a blade emerged from its chest, killing it. At that moment, Sean appeared, now fully integrated with the Guyver suit, and assured Miski that he had come back for her. She quickly told him about Max, and Sean broke the glass, freeing him. While Sean battled the Xenoids, Miski worked quickly to remove the tubes restraining Max. As soon as she freed him, she pulled Max to escape, but a Xenoid caught up and grabbed Max by the neck. Without hesitation, Miski cut an electrical cable and used it to electrocute the creature, forcing it to release Max. Seeing the danger, Sean rushed to help them. With a precise strike, he took down the Xenoid attacking Miski, sending it crashing into a glass container, which triggered a blaring alarm. The sound attracted more Xenoids, but Sean defeated them with ease, showcasing the full power of the Guyver suit. The escape continued, but Max stumbled and fell, getting caught by a Xenoid. Acting quickly, Miski struck the creature and freed Max. The trio was reunited, and Miski, determined, took the lead. But suddenly Max collapsed to the ground, writhing in pain. To their horror, he began transforming into a Xenoid. "It's too late for me," he told Sean before begging him to stop the others. Before they could react, Fulton appeared, grabbed Miski, and tossed her aside. He transformed into a massive Xenoid, and the final battle began. Fulton, now monstrous, seemed to have the upper hand, but just as he was about to deliver a fatal blow to Sean, the Guyver suit reacted. Sean's chest opened and unleashed a powerful energy wave that blasted Fulton away, defeating him. With Fulton out of action, Miski ran to Sean, who reassured her, saying he was still himself. Relieved, she hugged him, and the Guyver suit disengaged, returning Sean to his human form. She handed him a coat, and after a kiss, the two decided to leave together. As they walked away, one of Max's skeptical colleagues watched them from a distance, still doubting the stories. If you enjoyed this movie, I highly recommend watching this one as well. I'm sure you'll love it. See you there.